This episode of PodCRASH is brought to you by Spirit Hoods. You don't have to enjoy cosplay to love a Spirit Hood. Spirit Hoods are like a warm, fuzzy hat with ears that includes a scarf and mittens. Fashionable in the cold or in the evening, they come in styles for men, women, and kids, and in animal styles like gray wolf, brown bear, tiger, snow leopard, and panda. Go to spirithoods.com, enter the offer code PodCRASH, and get a 15% discount off your order. Spirit Hoods, put one on your head. Welcome to the show. I am that Chris Gore. It's a very special day today. It is Super Bowl Sunday. I am pumped. I'm sure you are pumped too. You're probably recovering from some Super Bowl party as you listen to this, or maybe it's your Monday morning quarterbacking the whole thing, or maybe you're listening to this much later and have completely forgotten about it. But I am a major football fan, big fan of the NFL, and what can I say? During football season, I'm there every Sunday. I will schedule things around it. Unfortunately, I travel a lot. Sometimes I'll be watching games in the airport, or I'll be checking scores on my phone. But I am a longtime NFL fan, and I guess I appreciate football for maybe different reasons than most folks. I tend to enjoy the sort of unfolding live documentary aspect of it and the drama. I guess a lot of people like it for the drama also. But I happen to also think that football is the gayest of all the sports. If you just listen to the sports announcers just talking about football, things sound so... It sounds like they're announcing gay porn. I mean, some of the statements like, he got full penetration right up the middle. There's about 10 guys in that pile. The wide receiver grabbed it and such. I mean, it's funny when you just hear this out of context. It sounds like they're describing sex acts. It really does, and no other sport does it quite so well as football. I actually have another Twitter account at Sports or Sex, in which all I do is I transcribe things sports announcers say. I will just say, Joe Buck on Fox Sports said this. And that's it. I just did the quote out of context, and you read it. They're all sports announcers' quotes, but they all sound incredibly sexual. That just adds another layer of enjoyment for me in watching the game. But I'm also a Detroit Lions fan, and I will be talking about my fan the Detroit Lions are good this season. What am I going to say? I think the fact that they actually got to the playoffs is an achievement. It's a young team, and they're only going to get better. So I'm not going to apologize for my team not being in the Super Bowl. I've got no dog in this fight. I really don't care. I just care for a good game and good commercials. I actually think this year I will make a prediction this year, because the game hasn't started yet for me. The time you're listening to this, it's clearly later. But I will make a prediction. It comes true every year. The halftime show will be boring. The halftime show, they could take the greatest entertainers of all time, put them in a halftime show, and they're terrible. I don't know why that is. But before we get to this week's podcast, I need to tell you that you can hear our show on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phone, on demand and on the go. Over 5,000 shows are on Stitcher, including PodCRASH with me. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Now, this week's PodCRASH occurred on the National Football Authority. That's the name of the show, it's the National Football Authority, hosted by Matt Baxendale and Daniel Wolf. And I had a great time on the show. I got to tell you something. Probably the most fun. We actually talked about movies too, which is I didn't really expect to do, but I think people kind of expect me to talk about that, and a lot of my interests do collide, film and sports movies and sports, and they all kind of mash up in my brain and also in the conversation. But it was a great conversation about sports. But one thing I do have to warn you about is that the quality of the audio on this podcast, for some reason, is not the greatest. I'll be popping in as I watch the game and explain to you the context, maybe something you might have missed. But the audio quality is not the best. You may have to adjust the volume or whatnot on whatever device you're listening to this on. But I have to say, the content of the conversation is great. And so I really, really had a great time, and Matt and Dan were amazing. So it is sort of a problem that my producer Sean Merrick and I are actually we're struggling with. I mean, as we do all of these various podcasts, we notice that every single one is a different way of doing it. Some of them I do in person. And then some of the other podcasts I'll do over Skype. Some I've done on Skype video, oddly. Some I've done on Skype, and I've tried to use a different microphone just so that the audio quality will improve. So, hey, what you're going to do a show like this, you're going to expect that the audio quality is going to be off and weird sometimes. I just hope that you'll bear with me and just enjoy the content of what's being said as I am your guide through all these various podcasts. I realize, too, I'm a little under the weather a bit. It's not so much under the weather as I'm a little hungover, I'm going to be honest. I had a long, rough night last night. There's nothing better than, and I was invited to a bunch of Super Bowl parties. I'm not going to any of them. I'm actually just going to be curled up on the couch, probably with some pizza and a beverage, and I'll be watching and enjoying the game and tweeting about it, and then recording parts of this podcast as we get to my Super Bowl prediction, which on the NF Authority, which is, you can follow them at NF Authority on Twitter. So National Football Authority. I predict that the New England Patriots are going to win. And the reason is that, first of all, I do not love this team. I'm not a fan. And really, I don't care. The New York Giants, great, fine. New England Patriots, I don't care either. But I do believe that they're one of those teams that you could be up by 2 touchdowns, and as long as they're just close, that they will sneak in and win. It's almost like they trick teams into thinking, "Oh, I'm winning. This is great. Maybe we can hang back a bit." And then suddenly they sneak up, and then they win by 3 points in the last 2 minutes. That seems to be their strategy, and it seems to work out every time. And I can't be the only person who's noticed this. This is moronic, and I'm recording this before the game is aired, so we'll find out if my prediction is accurate. One more plug before we get to things here. I wanted to let you know that I talked about in a previous show that my short film Red, about the infamous tube bar tapes. Those infamous tube bar tapes. You might have heard them with the bartender Red. He's tortured by these prank phone calls. Is Al there? Alcoholic? Is there an alcoholic here? Alcoholic? You remember that? Okay. I made this short film years ago. I'm not going to tell you it's the greatest thing ever. You might be entertained by the DVD, but you can get Red now on DVD. It's loaded with extras, including behind-the-scenes commentary. There's even a drunk commentary on there. Surprise coming from me. Anyways, if you go to Etsy.com, that's ETSY.com, search for Red DVD. When you go to that page, you can order from my shop there, which is Chris Gore's Love Spray. That's the name of my shop. If you enter the offer code PodCRASH, you'll get 50% off of the DVD. I've got only 1 box left of these DVDs. So if you want to get a copy of it, signed by me, and I'll even throw in a free gift in addition. It's a pretty cool thing. You get 50% off if you enter the offer code PodCRASH. Go to Etsy.com, ETSY.com, search for Red DVD. There's only 1 box left, so hurry. And before we get to PodCRASH this week, I want to talk about something that I'm incredibly annoyed about. This week, as you know, every week I appear on Attack the Show and I review DVDs. This week, I happen to review the 2011 edition of The Thing. Okay. So I reviewed this, and I talked about the original Thing, which was made in 1982, directed by John Carpenter, that this Thing, the 2011 edition, is a prequel to that one. It's a prequel film, and it almost, though, feels like a remake of the original John Carpenter 1982 edition of The Thing. Now, just so you know, as soon as I say something and this is what also I think what makes nerd culture irritating. It pisses me off, and it also is not particularly inclusive, and this is what makes people hate nerds. This is an example of this. I did this review on the air, And within minutes on Twitter, I got maybe 5 people saying, you know that the original thing is actually the 1951 edition of the thing, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I know this, folks. I know this. They don't call me a film expert on Attack of the Show for nothing. I've been there for 7 years, and I did a magazine/website Film Threat for 25 years. And I've written a lot of books about film, and I hate having to point out my credentials every time something like this happens. 2 things will happen on the air. I'll either make a legitimate mistake, which I am happy to apologize for, or secondly, I'll just leave out a fact because I have 5 minutes on the show. I am on the show for 5 minutes every week, and I have to talk about 3 or sometimes more DVDs in that 5-minute span of time. Okay, so let me read you this letter and how I responded to it. And this is why I hate nerd culture, and this is one aspect of nerd culture that you can't be self-righteous about this stuff. But I got an email from a guy. I don't know his real name. Israel, he says is his name. It's izzyreilly@juno.com. IZZY really @juno.com, and he says, seriously? ? First of all, I hate anyone who uses that thing seriously. You know, that was a bit from Saturday Night Live, and the fact that it's permeated the culture, and people say this as opposed to an entire thought, they'd rather use a word, I find it annoying. Seriously? Yeah, I hate that. Anyways, seriously, John Carpenter's The Original, The Thing, 1951's The Thing from Outer World is more like it. I know the audience is young, but come on. My response to izzyreilly@juno.com. Congratulations for being right. I guess that means you should do my job. Cover the details of 4 movies on DVD in less than 5 minutes. Ready? You're on live TV? Go. Come on, it's easy. Go. The relevant point is that The Thing, 2011, is a prequel, more like a remake, of John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. And when was the last time anyone watched that 1951 original? That movie, frankly, does not hold up. Carpenter's is the one everyone remembers, and the 2011 prequel directly connects to the 1982 movie by way of those dogs. Neither the 1982 nor the 2011 film directly connects to the 1951 version. And further, is it worth mentioning the original 1925 silent version of The Wizard of Oz every time someone mentions the 1939 color musical Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland? Is it? I hope you're proud of yourself. This is why people hate nerds and nerd culture. For that kind of I'm always right attitude. Enjoy your life. I do kind of, I used to have this column in Film Threat. I think I'm gonna bring this back on PodCRASH. I used to have this column in Film Threat called Hate Mail, in which people would send me stupid letters or comments, and I would respond, making them look like an idiot. I just think that if every time you talk about The Wizard of Oz, you have to mention that there was a 1925 silent black and white version of Wizard of Oz, or that it was based on a series of books by Frank L. Baum, whatever. It's not that important, folks. My task was to review the DVD of the 2011 edition, in which I gave it a rent because I do think it's worth seeing, and that's enough of that. Please, if you nerds, if you want to get people to be included in nerd culture, whether it be love of Star Trek, Star Wars, horror, geeky things, don't constantly correct them and act like a know-it-all. It makes you look like an asshole. And I should know because I've been that asshole quite a bit. But it's taken me this long to learn to be less of an asshole. All right, let's get to this week's PodCRASH. It's the National Football Authority with Matt Baxendale and Daniel Wolf. Follow them at NF Authority on Twitter. Also, nationalfootballauthority.com. You can listen to the podcast in which we get into a raucous discussion. Of course, it's football. It's my personal favorite sport, and today is my favorite day, sports day, anyways. I mean, it's like Christmas for the United States. Super Bowl Sunday is, and I'm going to actually start watching it in about 15 minutes. And we get to see all that lame pomp and circumstance with the official coin toss and the official that and the official. Start playing football. Start playing football and start this podcast. National Football Authority. Hut, hut, go!
Hi, well, we're here today on National Football Authority Radio by Chris Gore. He's with G4 TV, the Attack of the Show. He's the host of the DV Tuesday, and of course, he's the host of the PodCRASH podcast. Well, I guess, can we call you a host, Chris? I mean, you kind of just crash other people's podcasts. How does that work?
The whole premise is that I'm too lazy to do a podcast, so I just appear on other people's podcasts, and then I play the highlights on my own podcast. And I didn't want to be limited just talking about movies. People mostly know me as a movie guy on Attack of the Show on G4, and I'm not just, this gives me an opportunity to talk about, film and comic books and video games and music, and also sports, because it's a weird thing about sports. Like, I'm a big geek. I'm a longtime nerd geek, and there's a huge divide between people who are nerds, and then when I also say I like sports, people look at me, my geeky, nerdy friends look at me like, that's crazy talk. What are you talking about? There's really not. It's a tough thing to find that gene in both. Like, I like Batman comics. I also like the National Football League. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird.
It sounds like you're a modern Renaissance man in a lot of ways. You're dabbling in a little bit of everything. But I think we're kindred spirits there because, I also hear and quote Lord of the Rings as much as you want to talk about football. So we can run right ahead with that. But, Chris, I guess let's start off with mixing a little bit of football and film together here. We were looking over some of your stuff, and one of the articles we found from you was a top 10 football movies of all time. So let's mix a little bit of the cinema and the gridiron here together. And the list I found from you said the number one football movie of all time for you was The Longest Yard. Is that still the case?
It's absolutely the case. And when I say The Longest Yard, let's be very clear. This is the 1974 original with Burt Reynolds.
Well, not the one with Adam Sandler?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to say that, like I like some of Adam Sandler's older, funnier films, but Longest Yard is such a classic. What's so funny is I defy you when you flip by, that movie on cable or whatever. If it's just playing and you're seeing anything, whether it's the beginning, the middle, end, you will not change the channel. That movie is still engaging up to today, and I mean, just that whole thing of it. I think we broke his friggin' neck. I think we broke his friggin' neck. I mean, it was just so awesome to see that rather than the swear word, that actually that word became better when it aired on regular television. The word friggin'. I'm not sure exactly if that movie created that term friggin', but it's just a classic that holds up, and it also has all the elements, and also has a believable. When you're casting someone, an actor, to play in a sports movie, you have to really believe that they can do that part. And you believe Burt Reynolds could be kind of that, he's got that cocky attitude. He could be a great quarterback. And you also kind of see him, kind of being, you could see him being a jerk, like in the beginning of the film. Before he goes.
Well, Burt Reynolds' backstory from Florida State, right? He was Lee Corso's roommate at Florida State. And Lee Corso was, of course, one of the three guys in ESPN's College Game Day. So Burt Reynolds has a little bit of football history.
Yeah. So I mean, you completely buy him in that role, and also it has so much drama. I mean, taking already. I love sports movies just in general as a genre, because as a genre with a sports movie, a lot of sports movies are very cliche, but I keep saying I love that movie. I like that kind of movie because you either win or you lose, just like the result of any sporting event. You either win or lose the game, but in a sports movie, by losing the game, sometimes you really win, like in films like The Bad News Bears. They lost, but they really won. Or like in Rocky, he lost, the first match with Apollo Creed, but really he won respect. And that was more important than winning that fight. So that's why I personally happen to love sports movies. One that I would add that makes no sense, but, maybe you'll back me up, is the movie Rollerball, the original with James Caan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not a football movie in the sense they're not playing football, but it's so much based on the NFL, just the camaraderie, the way the teams are laid out, and it's sort of the perfect marriage of, for me, science fiction and sports. And I mean, the way they play the game, even like that big shoulder pads, I mean, they're playing football, just happens to be in a roller rink to make it kind of futuristic. I would count Rollerball as a football movie.
Okay, it's halftime, and as I predicted, the New England Patriots are actually they're looking pretty good, and of course they're ahead by 1. But I have to comment quickly here as I'm sitting here watching the game. The sound quality of this thing is almost unlistenable. Unfortunately, sorry. I don't know if it was a bad connection or whatever it was. So I have to apologize to you. But Sean Merrick, my producer at here at PodCRASH, actually sent me this letter, and he wanted me to read it on the podcast. It says, "Dear Chris, I am sorry that I booked you on this show where your voice sounds like it's trapped in a quagmire of jello. Speaking of Mird, Rick Mirror sure was an underrated quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks in the early 90s. Have a great show, your producer, Sean." I think we're having a great show. It's definitely a good Super Bowl. It's not going to be a blowout. But again, apologize for the audio, but there's a lot of good commentary on here. So back to the podcast, back to the National Football Authority.
The same thing is like, we see a group coming together and they're put in the face of adversity, and then they have to join together in one triumphant moment to overcome the odds. I mean, that's the sports movie theme right there.
That absolutely is, and that's why it really bugs me when I talk to my geeky, nerdy friends, and they make fun of me for being a sports fan. So it's like I can't win. If I could just divert on a subject for a second, but I found a guy years ago on eBay who was selling, because we were talking about the Super Bowl, I found a guy on eBay who sold old copies of the Super Bowl on VHS. Okay. And I bought a whole bunch of them. I've got almost all the Super Bowls. I'll record them, and I'll just save a copy of it. So I have like copy of Super Bowl III, right, in its original presentation. And this is the one where Joe Namath won. He made the guarantee and whatnot.
Beat the Colts.
With the Jets. Oh yeah, beat the Baltimore Colts. And what's awesome about this VHS tape, it also has the commercials on.
Oh really?
Oh my God, the original commercials. And what's also crazy about this is I keep saying I want to have a Super Bowl party, but what I want to do is show one of these really old Super Bowls and then tell my friends to show up and dress from like the 60s or the 70s, and then everybody, and then take bets on the game. Not necessarily the score, because, you could Google the score, but, who wins the coin toss? Who scores the first touchdown? You could actually, you could still look up those stats, but, gosh, you could lay bets on that. I think that would be a really fun way to do a Super Bowl party, to actually show a Super Bowl from 20 years ago, and then make everybody dress like the period. The funny thing is that when you watch them, the presentation is so unsophisticated. I mean, this whole game from Super Bowl III, it looks like an airing of a high school football game on local cable television. They've got little transparencies. The guys are just killing time. The game, also the pace of the game, so much slower. So you really not only is the game different, the presentation looks crude by comparison. You've got graphics out, and the graphics get really irritating, where you have robots coming up from the field and arrows going all over the place. And it's like,
even the basic stuff, the bottom line with the scores and stats, that stuff never even existed until like 10 years ago.
Show me where he has to get to make the first down. I don't need any other lines. Everything else is overkill. It's too much, and then it just gets I don't know. It just gets irritating. But yeah,
I agree with you completely.
I got to get you some of these, because these things were so great. It's just them being uninterrupted. So with those commercials, it sort of puts you back in that era. It reminds me why I fell in love with football, watching it as a kid with my dad.
When was the last time you went to an NFL game? I mean, you said you went to San Diego, since there's no teams in Los Angeles right now?
Yeah. This is a couple years ago. I try to go to an NFL game every year, but a couple years ago, I'll tell you the best game to go, actually, if you want tickets to see, a game at Qualcomm Stadium, see the Chargers, is anytime the Raiders are playing. The Raiders
are playing fans?
Because season ticket holders will, because they hate Raider fans so much, season ticket holders of the Chargers will sell them. So I went there, and look, I'm a guy who, I love to have fun. I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want to see a big game. And what's amazing is you walk through there, it's freaking tailgate tent city with all of the, with all the Raiders fans there, and they come from everywhere. So
those are the guys from the Rollerball movie.
Yeah, exactly. It does look like all the guys from the Rollerball movie, or the Road Warrior. Guys like they're going into battle, but I'm just there with a sense of fun. I'm walking around, having a good time, and there is something that's a blast about that. But And I've gotten club level seats before, but actually I prefer something like closer to the field. You can actually hear stuff going on. I mean, the club level's nice, but I feel like it's like, there's all this stuff with all the service and everybody being nice to each other. I want to be where people are yelling.
You know, that's the funny thing too is when you get to the cheap seats, it's where you get to see the really drunk fans just get into random fights for no good reason, throwing beer in each other's faces. The next thing you know, you got 15 cops trying to break up a brawl. It's one of the funniest things as long as you're not in the middle of it.
Yeah, as long as you're not in the middle. I mean, I've had beer spilled on me from being close to an altercation, but I've never been a part of one just because it's like, look, we're all sports fans. It's like, you know what? And also, if I'm there and my team loses and there's someone from the opposing team and they got a jersey, I'll just say, you know what? Congratulations, good game. Or you got to give it up. Like there's certain teams where it's like, you know, like I was a big fan of John Elway just because of his personal story. You know, I mean, his personal story was like a football movie. You know, here's the guy who went to the Super Bowl, like 3 times and lost. And not only that, it was one of the most humiliating losses in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, he got drilled 3 times.
Oh, my God. And then to stay in it, and at the age that he was at, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. And you know, and then to beat, I think it was a Super Bowl 32 when he beat the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre's second trip to the Super Bowl. And, oh, my God, it was, I mean, that just gave me chills. So I became an Elway fan. I mean, I really liked that team. I really felt that there was a respect. You know, they would do the salute. I mean, it was that team was magical. You know, that really was. And it was just something out of a movie because of Elway's personal story. When you see how much adversity, and this is a guy that never quit. I mean, he had good years and bad years with that team, but the fact that he kept going back to the Super Bowl losing and then just not give up, not give up, not give up. I mean, that's a lesson from life, you know?
Oh, yeah. I coach hockey myself down here in Atlanta, Georgia, and the lesson you always teach kids about sports is that it's a metaphor for life in so many ways. Like if you're talking about your friends who don't get the whole sports thing, they're more the comic book type, they're more the music type. Sports is a metaphor for life. It's not about getting knocked down. It's about whether you get back up with a vengeance. And that's what John Elway ended up doing in his career, and his persistence paid off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's giving me chills actually thinking about Super Bowl 32 and how just crazy, insane that game was.
Yeah, that was a great football game. The one thing I think everybody sticks with in their head when they think of Super Bowl 32 with John Elway, the play he made inside the 10-yard line in the first half, where he was diving for a first down and he got helicoptered around in a circle. Have you ever been to any college games?
Oh yeah, actually. Well, it's funny because also like in my NFL travels, I've been to St. Louis for games. I've been to Mile High Stadium, which was great. But to me, what's more fun than the NFL experience, because I feel like the crowds in NFL, like they're respectful and they're, you know, and sometimes they're disrespectful, like Raiders fans can be. But college is a totally different game experience. And yes, I have been to some Michigan games, and I never went to U of M, right? I never went to U of M, so I really feel like I don't really care. But because it's a regional thing, growing up in Detroit and growing up in Michigan, I do root for Michigan, but also it doesn't ruin my day if they lose. So if you win, I'm happy for you too. But that rivalry is so amazing, and I've actually seen Michigan play at the Rose Bowl. I live really close to the Rose Bowl, so I will just actually go there. Like if Michigan's playing, awesome. If not, I will go there and tailgate. There is nothing more fun than tailgating outside of the Rose Bowl with.
Yeah, in the golf course.
Oh my God! All over the golf course. Like I am there. I'm there every year. I will just go just to hang out. I don't care what team is playing. College is a totally different experience and more fun to be had. I mean, it's cool to see an NFL game, but I couldn't see being a season ticket holder, A, because of the price, and B, I feel like the presentation, it's one of those things where the presentation on television for football is actually, if you really want to watch the game, is better than actually physically being at the game, unlike some other sports are actually, you know, it's good live and it's also good televised. I think football is better televised. And I am happy to tell you, you can bet on it, the halftime show will be boring.
Is that a bold prediction?
That is my Super Bowl prediction / stupid fact that the halftime show will be boring. I mean, you've seen even some like they do this sort of a lame concert, which ends up being a 7-minute medley of pop songs. Even bands I like The Who, when they played the Super Bowl, they were terrible. never been a good show. It's this sing-song and dance that Icecapades on grass. It's the worst thing. It's, in my mind, like when all that nonsense happened with the wardrobe malfunction with Justin Timberlake and all that, no one saw it. No one saw it or even noticed till after. It wasn't until later when I heard about it and I went back and watched, on my DVR. Like, oh, well, that happened. That was kind of shocking. I mean, like that halftime show is always lame. To me, it's where someone goes to the store for beer and ice, or we load up on food. Or you just tune to some other channel where they're doing some other halftime fill-in show. That halftime show,
like Celebrity Deathmatch or something at halftime, or Beavis and Butthead at halftime. Those are always great.
Those are always great. Or they do the lingerie bowl.
Oh yeah.
And I've even this is how nerdy I am. I've actually shown clips from. You can buy copies of this on the internet. It's the Super Bowl, spelled SUPHER. The Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl game played with all women teams.
All right.
So Google it. I had copies on VHS from years past as a way to entertain my friends because I don't think. I mean, have you ever watched that halftime show? That's my. I wish they would take bets on it because I would win every time.
I haven't watched the halftime show. I haven't watched the halftime show since Prince played in the rain a few years back, which was actually probably one of the more decent halftime shows they've had in the last decade.
Yeah, I haven't watched the halftime shows beyond just accidental clips, like when Bruce Springsteen crotched the camera at one point. I saw that. That was funny. But other than that, they've been terrible, flat out terrible. All right, well, let me move on here real quick. And one note on The Dark Knight Rises. My sister goes to the University of Pittsburgh, and they actually filmed a bunch of scenes literally outside her house. They parked the 2 or 3 Batmobiles that they had immediately in front of her house. She has a bunch of pictures of it. Oddly enough, they wouldn't let anybody close to them. I guess they were afraid people would steal them. Anyway, so the Super Bowl, my pick, I guess I'm the tiebreaker here since Dan took the Giants and Chris took the Patriots. So I'm rooting for the Patriots, even though I'm not a Patriots fan. One of the guys I went to high school, played lacrosse with him, James Ahedovo, starts for the New England Patriots in the secondary. But I think the Giants are going to win the game for one reason and one reason only, which is as much as I love James, the Patriots defense is terrible. Now, I'm looking forward, and I'm going to continue the movie trend here, which I think pretty much needs to be said at this point. How many great major movie trailers have we seen during Super Bowls, right? I remember seeing Matrix Reloaded, Neo flying through the city with all the trash behind him, right? Wasn't that? I remember seeing Super Bowl.
I remember seeing the first Matrix trailer and wondering, what the hell did I just see? I have to see this again. So, yeah, there's been some great – I mean, so the Super Bowl is like the Super Bowl of movie trailers for the summer as well.
Absolutely. Right. And Chris, I might be going a little up your alley here with this one. I'm not sure. But the movie trailer I hope to see a bigger extended cut of is one that not a lot of people are talking about outside of the film community. Like, everybody's hearing about Lord of the Rings. Everybody's hearing about Dark Knight Rises. I want to see a more extended Prometheus trailer. I want me some Alien prequel.
I'm right there with you. I mean, it's like what I like about it is they're not promoting it as the Alien prequel. I mean, we know it is, but the fact that I just hope that because I trust Ridley Scott. I mean, he's the guy we were talking about.
Blade Runner.
I mean, Blade Runner. I mean, Ridley Scott has not made a science fiction movie in a long time, and he's a guy who's capable of making an epic. I mean, Gladiator. I defy you to watch that today. It's epic. I mean, it'll give you chills. That musical score. I mean, Russell Crowe is amazing. I mean, that film holds up. And to see Ridley Scott go back to genre, yeah, I think Prometheus is going to be great. I hope we see an extended or at least a different trailer. Last year was really cool with Captain America and Thor. I mean, I thought that was really amazing. And then Super 8. I don't know if you saw that film.
Super 8 was the movie I wanted to see the most this year. With the trailer with the train where the little wheel popped off and something exploded out. That had me so excited, which is why I was thinking movie trailers when I was talking commercials here. But so I want to see some more Prometheus. I want to see a longer cut. That has me excited more than any movie except for Batman this year.
I do like the entertaining trailers, like a lot of the comedy. I mean, like, what better type of commercial? They've got it down to the science. Beer commercial. I don't think I drink beer because of beer commercials necessarily, but I will say I'm incredibly entertained by them. And some of the most entertaining, these are like little comedy shorts. They're so well done.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you completely. And another thing, too, is that such as beer commercials. My favorite Super Bowl commercial of all time was an E-Trade commercial about 11 years ago now. And it was a guy playing like a drum and a monkey jumping up and down next to him. And it literally went on for 20, 30 seconds. Monkey jumping up and down, guy playing a drum. And the screen went to black, and it said, Well, we just wasted $2 million. E-Trade, what are you doing with your money?
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. Also, the Bud Frogs. I mean, there have been so many great campaigns that have been amazing. Like, the What's Up campaign as well. I'm sorry to bring
the Bud Bowl.
I feel like
the Bud Bowl was awesome. I agree with Dan.
The Bud Bowl, man. I want the Bud Bowl.
Oh,
bring it back.
The Bud Bowl. That animation was so cool with the Bud. It was so great.
Bud versus Bud Light. Then it was Bud Bowl 2 the next year. And I was only a kid when that came out, but I thought that was the coolest commercial ever. That made me so happy when I was a little kid. But I guess maybe we should do this here. So I'll throw in my stupid little fact, and we'll talk about some Super Bowl commercials here. The stupid little fact I think is going to happen in this game is I'm calling a safety. I expect a safety in this year's Super Bowl.
Really?
Nice. A safety, because I think that there's going to be these two teams pass the ball so much, and they're not really good running short yarders. And if somebody gets backed up, I think somebody's going to get caught in the end zone because both teams have really strong defensive lines. So I'm picking a safety.
Wow.
Yeah, right. There's a bold prediction for you.
What's going to be the most unusual bet, like sure bet? Because I love the types of bets you see in Vegas. And honestly, I've never bet on a game. I've never, other than like a friendly bet between friends, I've never actually gambled or bet on a Super Bowl or an NFL game. I've had friends that they bet every week, and it really it makes the game a lot more exciting. But what are some of the more interesting? I mean, you can bet on everything from the coin toss to who's going to score first. I mean,
what's your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
I always like the Bud Frogs, and I think the What's Up thing. I liked it when I first saw it, but it was immediately created a trend that got annoying too quickly. It was that from that one commercial alone, everyone, weeks after, there were parodies even on the internet and Saturday Night Live. It just, that thing created a trend immediately that started hitting the zeitgeist. And there's so few things now, pop music is so fractured. I mean, I don't know about you, I don't really listen to much pop music anymore at all.
Nope.
So,
or rock, because rock's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the one thing I feel like we're all kind of connected by is this event. I mean, the Super Bowl next to Christmas. I mean, it really is America's Christmas is the Super Bowl, right?
Okay, so that's it for this week, folks. And obviously, my Super Bowl prediction was wrong. Yet again, I get it completely wrong. So when it comes to sports, don't trust me. When it comes to movies, you should trust me. But when it comes to sports, I'm not sure that my opinion, unless it's a sports movie, then I think you should take me seriously. When it's a sports movie, sports predictions, I nearly always get wrong because I usually go with my heart, or I try to listen. I can't get it right. I can't get it right. Forget it. But I want to thank those guys at the National Football Authority. You can check out their podcast, nationalfootballauthority.com. And I want to thank Matt Baxendale and Daniel Wolf. You can follow them on Twitter at NF Authority. I also want to apologize on behalf of my producer, Sean Merrick, and myself about the quality of the audio on this podcast. Both Sean and I are just still learning this whole doing the podcast thing. So I appreciate your patience in that. I hope you'll look beyond the technical flaws and enjoy this for the content as we get better at it. It is kind of a complicated podcast to do, bringing audio in from other podcasts and mixing stuff and whatnot. So we just want you to be entertained. And on that note, if you are entertained and you're enjoying the show, please go over to iTunes and give us a review, a good review. Hopefully, a 5-star review. I would appreciate that. And please post a comment. I will be responding to some of those comments actually in future episodes. And I will promise you actually that future episodes of PodCRASH, we will not experience the technical variances in quality that we had on this. We've taken measures to address that, and I can tell you the next few episodes that are coming, you're gonna love them, and we got our shit together as far as the sound. Anyways, thanks again for that. You can follow me at that Chris Gore on Twitter. You can follow the show at PodCRASH Show, and my producer Sean. You should all give him shit. You can follow him at Angry Hero Sean on Twitter, and we now have a Facebook fan page for PodCRASH. If you go to facebook.com/PodCRASH, we have a Facebook fan page, and you can post comments there as well. You can check out pictures from the show, and I, whenever there's a new episode, I throw it up there as well as on Twitter. So prediction's wrong, but you know what? And one prediction was right. My prediction that the halftime show would be boring was correct. It's always this horrible medley of someone's career who's long over, and then the songs you wish you were actually just listening to their tracks and not actually seeing them perform live. Anyways, well, thank you. It's Super Bowl's over. Super Bowl day. Oh, it's that depression is setting in. Like that sort of post Super Bowl depression. There's no football until it ramps up again in September. I'm sad. Anyways, thanks for listening. And as I'm fond of saying on every episode, let's get out of here! Hey, if you're still listening to this, you're probably a lot like me. You're the kind of person who stays through the end credits of a movie and looks at all the names. Hey, I know a guy named Dave Williams, as the name scrolls by on the screen. Well, for that, you shall be rewarded. If you send a self-addressed stamped envelope to PodCRASH with that Chris Gore, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California, 90036, you shall be rewarded. You will get a gift in return. Something small, something that will be a token of my appreciation for listening to the end of the show, and I will thank you for it. Later.